Well, thank you guys. That was just so nice. As you guys were coming in, and when I saw you all here, it's interesting what Dee shared about Megan, about just that beauty that she sees in Megan. And really, you guys are all just like shining. I mean, when you came in, I felt that as I was looking at you guys here. I was like, man, just a simply just beautiful, just beautiful, just so awesome, all of you. And thank you for being here. So I thought we might have more fun with ways to fail at your yoga practice. 7 ways, right? 7 ways, if that's possible. But seven things. I like the number 7, and I also like number 12. We don't have to listen. We don't have to limit it to 7, but really, I guess I could really say it's more like 7 to 12 ideas about yoga that are so totally false, and will really. It oftentimes leads people astray from something that could be such an incredible gift to their lives. I've been practicing yoga since I was about 28. I've got grown kids that are much older than I was when I first started practicing yoga, with 5 grandchildren, very full life, and so happy that I did not get pulled aside by some of these things that I think that are going to come up. And I'm going to really rely on some of our more senior people in here, or maybe you've had something where you've made the mistake or the mistaken belief, about yoga. Thank you. And about the practice of yoga that I think would be good to put up here. Because, if we have that clarity and we start to see ourselves doing it, we go, oh no, wait a minute, that's not truth. That's not the way that I want to go. So I'm going to rely on some help because I don't really have anything in my mind right now. And but seven clear ways to send you into a downward spiral where you just completely feel like you have failed and it's not working. Do you guys have any?
There's a right way to do it.
Ah, very good. There is a right way to do it. Right, and I mean right. So the idea is that instead of there is a right way or a wrong way, it's really understanding there is a helpful way and a non-helpful way. There's a beneficial and a not so beneficial way. Okay? All right. 2.
Believing that the final stage of a pose is the goal.
Okay.
At all costs.
All right, gotcha. Let's see, the belief that, just like what you said, the belief that, I'm just going to say like the picture, because oftentimes it's what we've seen in a book, or that the picture of a posture or asana or pose, the word is Sanskrit words, asana, is the goal. That's what you said, right? Yeah, is the goal. And this is ways to fail. This is very difficult because when we get into class and we see somebody next to us, we start creating a story in our mind, right? We see someone next to us and we say, oh, look at what they're doing. And, they've got the yoga moves down and I don't, and all this. And in reality, the whole of yoga and Ayurveda is in truth that, first of all, the posture is a teeny bit of it. It's important because we're addressing the body, and the body is a gateway to a higher, more healthier state of being. But this understanding that the posture or the asana in of itself, that there is a goal of how it has to look and how it has to be, is so false. But instead, it really is the building of the posture, how you learn how to build it, that matters. And basically, the building of a posture, it's a real simple idea. There's a foundation, and we build from the foundation up. And breath is our guide, and we want our thinking to be guided by our breath. So very, very important that if we find ourselves, really either one of these things, we find ourselves hooked into this belief that these are great what you started out with, that when I've had a student that really insisted on holding on to one of these, they usually don't last. I don't see them here very long. If they really hold to this, especially, well, really either one of these are both really strong, that if they get this crystallized idea that this is true, that it's very difficult to stay the course. Because remember, yoga as a whole, it's a skill. It's a skill like, if you go and you want to learn to play piano, but it's even more sophisticated. As a matter of fact, if you want to be a great pianist, become a great yogi and you'll become a great pianist. It's even much more sophisticated and there's much more involved, right, than that. So, just really knowing that, man, you guys are starting out real strong here. Oh, someday, sort of like a destination. Someday I'll be able to. Okay. So like, how do I want to put that up there? It's like, then I can do yoga. I see what you're saying now. So in other words, like it's prioritizing, like everything else becomes a priority. Once I do this, then I'll be able to do that. Yes. Yes, and this is very, very common, and we refer to it as destination addiction. We had a student recently who was here. I mean, she's been coming for, I don't know, probably a couple months, and she's been talking about, oh my life is so different. I feel so much better. And then all of a sudden, we get a text from her, and she said, I've hurt my shoulder. I'm not going to be able to come. It's like, oh my gosh, you are more than your shoulder, right? You are more than your shoulder. So what Araceli is referring to here, and that's a sure path. It's a sure path of failure when we get into that. Let me move this down a little bit. I'll call it let's see, when I blank, then that goes along with my talk I did this morning too on Rasa Yoga with Padma. Then I will get serious about my yoga training. And we refer to this as destination addiction. One day, then I will. And the thing too about this is that if a person really leads with this, they're leading with it probably over and over in every aspect of their lives. It's a continual pattern. And the thing about yoga, it's like the buck stops here. There's no other one. When somebody says, well, once I do this, then I'll start my yoga. It's like, no, you got to break that pattern of saying, once I do this, then I will. And the buck stops here. It's yoga. It's going to help you to break that pattern, that self-defeating, sabotaging pattern of once I complete this, then I will. So that's a good one. Thank you so much, Araceli. Oh, with my body, I can't do it. Yes. Right. Okay. So I had one time, and I'll tell you this to back up on what Becky and Danielle are saying here. One time, Gracie was in class. And for those of you that don't know Gracie, Gracie is one of our Ayurveda teachers, and she's going to be teaching the workshop on anxiety, healing anxiety, depression, agoraphobia, mental pathologies, utilizing Ayurveda and also yoga. And so you'll get to hear her story in there if you haven't heard it already, but it is a pretty difficult story. I mean, she has really walked through the fire panic attack disorder and agoraphobia. I mean, she's a powerhouse, okay? Well, this was many years ago, and she's been at Rasa Yoga. She's been a student for many years, well over a decade, probably 12 years or 13 years, something like that. And she was in class, and she was really in the middle of recovery, which I think we're all in recovery, but she was in the middle, really moving through her thing, moving through recovery. And there was a woman that was practicing next to her, who was physically was a larger, kind of curvier woman and all this. And she came up to me later, and she said, she was practicing next to Gracie. She says, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this with my body. There's no way I'm going to be able to do this. I saw the woman next to me, and she was just moving on her mat. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. She went on and on. I'll never be able to do that. And I looked at her and I said, you have no idea what her or anyone else in that room was going through. And I said, I want to encourage you strongly that you stop using your body as an excuse and comparing yourself to other people. At that time, I was definitely not at liberty to share what Gracie was going through, because that was, part of her training, and that was at, confidentiality at that time. And I was very strong with her. Any of you been around me, you know that when I feel passionate about something, and that's what I said, and I said it really clear. And it's very important for us to realize that, that comes back to, and Danielle, you love that thing I did today. It comes back to the blame, right? That we want to take care that we don't even blame our body. Now, I'm going to tell you, I've done yoga, like I share with you guys, for a long time. And if I gain weight, yes, it does make it difficult for me to do some of my arm balances I like to do, some of the things I like to do. But I've created that, I created that obstacle. That's, for me, what I'm perceiving as an obstacle. That's me. That's my karma. Those were my choices. Those were decisions that I made. So instead of saying, well, I can't do that because of this, instead, the most powerful thing I can do is sit with acceptance and mercy. I mean, real mercy. Always know that's got to be a really important part of the equation, right? With acceptance and mercy, which is how we want to begin with that foundation of yoga. We've got to say, okay, you know what? I am looking at my choices, my history right now. This does not need to define my future. And whoever's on the mat next to me, they walk their path, I walk my path. Because I want to tell you all something. We all have our skeletons in our closet, if we want to call them that. We all have our dark places that we deal with. If we're human beings, we're going to have something that we are dealing with. And in that way, we are one, we all have those same emotions. So remember, focus on yourself, right? So how did you say that with my body? With my body type, with my body. Oh yes, I like, and I've actually even said that before when I've trained, I had training in power yoga, and I've said that. I'm like, I can't do that arm balance. My arms are too short. Look, their arms are long. Of course, now I'm like, and students say it all the time. I did too. There's not anything you guys aren't going to say or do that I haven't done. So with my body, this is just not going to work. Boy, we're coming up with these pretty easy, aren't we? I didn't even have any in my mind. All right. Right. Comparisons. Competition. Trying to, look like someone else. Everybody has their work to do. Every one of us. People find it hard to believe that I had a very difficult time speaking. I spent many years of my life, finding my voice, being able to speak without wanting to just all over the place. You know, we've all been through our stuff and go through our stuff. So, you know, it's important to remember that and to honor one another, you know, because it takes some courage. Takes some courage. And yoga in and of itself can be pretty darn awkward. And yoga can be stressful. It is, because it brings forward those things. It's like, in a way, you come in, you get on your mat, it brings forward, you know, certain stressful situations within your own mind, and you get to see how you deal with it. And then you get to practice refining how you're going to deal with it. And first and foremost, the most important thing we can do in dealing with anything is learning how to calm our nervous system. You got the power, man. You got the power to see life clearly with great wisdom. Everybody in here has this seed of great, great wisdom. Everyone. There's nobody that's apart from that. But if our mind is turbid and we're we're in this state of kind of vacillation and turbidity and inner chaos, then the rest of the world looks and feels like that to us, doesn't it? But through moving our body, like you noticed the practice we did earlier when I said inhale, you don't have to try to make yourself inhale, but you wait. Your arms follow your breath. Exhale. And your arms go down. That is the most amazing technology that exists on the planet. I'm serious. It can absolutely, if you discipline yourself to truly allowing your body to follow your breath, if you truly discipline yourself, I mean, you have to also refine your breathing, learn how to breathe well, learn how to breathe efficiently. If you do that, man, it is a lifetime game changer. And then from that space, your nervous system begins to calm, and then I'll move forward with the other stuff later. Okay, so comparison, competition, I got to look like somebody else. Who says somebody looks better than the other person anyway? Like, who made up the rules? Doesn't make any sense, does it? Because, I mean, really, when you guys were all sitting in here, I mean, really, the best word I have to describe it, you know, your sincere hearts, you're so open and sweet. I mean, you just look like diamonds. That was the best word I had, like, you know, just radiant and just so beautifully radiant. And, like, who decides what, you know, who we're supposed to look like? And understand something with any of these, when you look in yoga books are tricky. You know, in most of the yoga world in the United States of America, you know, it is primarily a filter and catching people, catching Americans from what they've been doing that wasn't working. That's what's happening right now. And so yoga in America doesn't really look completely the way it's meant to look. Would you agree with me? Doesn't fully look the way it's really meant to look. As a unifying, balancing, big S, self-realizing thing. Yoga in America, really, if you open up a yoga book or you open up Yoga Journal, you'll start to think that comparisons, competition, and looking like someone else is what yoga is. That is false. It's not true. Right? And because publishers, people that have put these things together, you know, they're still trying to find their way. And in many ways, they're teaching yoga, they're offering yoga, they're in Ayurveda, a lot in Ayurveda in America too. They're offering it in a very Western way. And it's in a Western way that the symptom is the cause, and that's what we want to address. And so just so you guys know, that's another workshop, but it's important. That's my shtick, you know, big shtick for mine. But it is true that you can open up. We've got yoga books out there. You're going to open them up, and you're going to think that this is, you're going to be like, wait a minute. We just said that, that with my body, this is just not going to work. But it looks like in here, this yoga book is kind of more or less telling me that is the way it is. It's published and written and photographed by an American. Someone that just said, let's sell these books, right? And you look in a book and you've got somebody in triangle pose and their feet are super far apart and their hands are on the ground and they're just doing whatever it takes. That's not necessarily the posture. Okay, it's important to know that yoga postures, asanas, they're blueprints, they're energetic blueprints. And that over time, as you grow in your practice, if you train more, you'll understand more and more the deeper energetic blueprint that you're actually building and bringing a coherency to. And understand, too, that yoga is about health. Fitness is a lovely byproduct of good health, but it is not the goal. We have a lot of fit Americans that are fit simply because they are negating what they don't like about themselves, and they're still not healthy. They're very unhealthy. Yoga and Ayurveda are about becoming healthy, healing, healthy, holistic, about becoming whole. And then it's from that place that you determine, kind of how fit do I want to be. But first and foremost, absolute health, body, mental, emotional health. The term Rasa Yoga means it's emotional sadhana or emotional training, Rasa Yoga. It's emotional training. I mean, ultimately, our emotions, it's through our emotions we either feel trapped or we feel free. So I hope these distinctions help a little bit. And just that's why, the idea of fitness, that's why we often think that these are, there's a right way. I mean, how often do you see some new study coming across going, the best fitness is found, here's the new deal, do this is the best thing. But the path to health doesn't change. I mean, it really doesn't. There's no new big fad. I mean, all the big fads that you're hearing a lot about are actually yoga, but people just don't call it that, which is another little shtick of mine. It's like, but that's just how it is. At least it's around. So just know, I mean, don't worry about the magazines and all that stuff, because they're just doing the best that they can. They're doing the best that they can. And honestly, even Mr. Iyengar, he was had even said that many years after he published, Light on Yoga, which is the Bible of yoga, yoga postures and yoga psychology and part of our lineage. And he stated that many of the photographs in his book that, some of the alignments a little hyperextended and some of it's a little, so just take care that you don't identify with that, and take care that you understand it really is all about you. All about you. And all about you shaping a healthy, coherent, energetic blueprint so that you create the circumstances and the stage to be as healthy as you possibly can be, so you can really focus on living a vibrant life where you're thriving. Okay, so we got two more paths to failure. My family needs me more than I need yoga. Or we can fill in the blank too with anything else, right? My blank, make up the excuse. Of course, I mean, I get all sorts of them. My car, gotta get my car fixed, my this, my that, so you can say my family needs me more than I need yoga, or my car needs addressing, my house needs cleaning. When in fact, I can tell you that when somebody really sticks with it, beyond what their family's saying, why are you gone? We want you here. That over time, it eventually gets to a place, often with the majority, where they say, are you going to yoga today? What happened? I noticed you're not going as much. What's going on? I've noticed you're kind of grumpy. And you're like, fine, I'll see you in about a week. But it really does. And I remember really clearly, I remember a gentleman that was, he was actually an Indian, and he was was coming to classes many, many years ago. And I remember his wife always going, why are you gone? And he actually owned a retail store too, so he was always in the store. He was always working. He was either always working or he was always in yoga. Right? And he, out of the blue, he just disappeared. Actually, we grew so fast. Whenever I was in Pasadena, we grew so fast. And I remember looking at him standing in a corner one day when we went from like 3 people in the room to it was jam-packed. And I was like, uh-oh. But I didn't really see him in classes after that. But I called him quite a few times. If you guys haven't noticed yet, we like to call and outreach, and I've been doing that for years. And I got his wife on the phone, and she said, I don't know what's going on with him. He needs to get in there. I have been on him like crazy, but for the first several years that he was coming, she was always on him about wanting him to be at home. And once he decided to stop coming, she's like, he needs to get back. I've tried talking to him. Please talk to him. So my family needs me more. And I would say my family needs me more than I need to be healthy. Because that's really the truth of it. All right, number 7. Do we have a fantastic number 7? That's awesome. That is awesome, Annalise, because I think that's our crowning glory. I think you've hit on the crowning glory, right? It's true. That's why we have Rasa Yoga. We are governed by if it feels good, then. If it doesn't feel good, then. Right? Making our decision, that is a clear path to failure. And so 7, it's basing it on your emotional state, on emotion. And you can write on there, if you're taking notes on this, you can write on there that, that thing, that fill in the blank. If it feels good, because it's true, it's like I feel so good, I'm great to go. If I feel bad, and that's generally a pattern that probably you might get pulled around in your life with other things. That sort of thing can keep us in a self-sabotaging pattern, right? It's like, this doesn't feel good, so this must mean, I'm not being successful. If it feels good, it must mean I'm being successful. And again, another talk. If you're not in QL 101, I'm actually going to be touching on this on the next session. But what happens to most of us when we do actually reach our goals? If we stick long enough and succeed, and we reach, say, a first stage goal. Let's say if you set a goal and you say, you know what, for this month, I'm going to be in my training, I'm going to be in there 3 times, blah, 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 and you start to feel better and you reach your goal. Does anybody know what happens to most people when they reach their goals? Yeah. I need to take a break. Failure. It's generally when people reach their goals, when somebody is at a success point, or just at the success point, is when people sabotage. And it's because of emotion. It's because of emotion. Because we start to feel, if I feel good about something, I'm going to do it. I'm going to sign on. The universe is telling me, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. Emotions are a very poor indicator of anything. They're very important. They're a very important byproduct of thought. And actually, the term rasa is a very important term. And you'll learn some about this in meditation too. And you'll learn a lot about it in Ayurveda. Very, very important term. And a very important practice, and you learn how important emotions actually are. I mean, they're your power. They're how you shape yourself and shape the world. But we're either imprisoned by our emotions, and that's what I mean. We feel imprisoned by our emotions when we decide this doesn't feel good, so it must not be good. This feels great, so it must mean I need to do more of it. This is at the heart of the pain-pleasure principle, and it is at the heart of why we suffer. Right? It's at the heart of why we suffer, because pain doesn't feel good, so we have a strong resistance to it. Pleasure feels good, so we have a strong attachment to it. So we either, find ourselves feeling addicted to certain things that are good and not so good, and we find ourselves running and trying to avoid things we don't like. So, ding, 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 you got the crowning glory. So we stop right there. All right. So we're going to take just a little bit of a restroom break, and then we're going to come back to our mats and do a little, what I was talking about earlier, building the posture from the inside out. So just a few minutes, just enough time for you to be able to go to the restroom. So I like being in a circle, especially since we're going to be working on some posture. So at one point, my back will be to you, so I apologize, but I think this still works a little bit better. Okay, now when practicing yoga postures, and you guys can stay seated, and when we come in to do the practice of yoga, it's often difficult, stressful, some other words, awkward, right? It can be quite difficult and it can be quite awkward. And with these things in mind, the idea that there's a right way to do it, and then the belief that this picture, and when I get done, then it's quite tough, because you come in and, you step in and the teacher is up there on the teacher's box, and you're standing diligently like he or she has asked you to, or you're sitting diligently, and next thing you know, they jump off the box and they go walking around somewhere. Right? And the main reason for that, the reason we don't do look-see, come look-see yoga, is because the idea is to teach you the skill so that you learn intuitively. You learn from the inside out these principles. So there's only so many principles. There's hundreds of thousands of yoga postures, but there's only so many principles. And tonight, what I hope that you do is that you walk away with these principles in mind, and that you start to practice this week on your mat with these principles, no matter what posture you're doing. So first of all, foundation, we want to build from the ground up. The term lines of energy, right? So if I'm standing, my foundation is my feet. I want to build my standing posture called mountain pose or Tadasana. I want to build that so my feet are my foundation. I'm going to move my awareness along lines of energy from my feet up through my legs, so my shins are slightly going to move in. I want a clear line through my knees. I'm going to scoop my tailbone. When you hear the term scoop your tailbone, that means it's not tucking your tailbone under, so you're not going into a posterior tilt, nor are you going into an anterior tilt. You're instead bringing your tailbone into a neutral position. Your tailbone, for most people anyway, is like a C shape. And so it's like, instead of that C going or the C going you're bringing it in a neutral position. You may be able to practice that while you're seated right where you are, because when you're on the ground, you always want to be on your sit bones, because if you're on your sit bones, you're in that neutral position. If you're rounded on your tailbone, you're not. You might find it a little challenging because there's a major group of muscles, sometimes referred to as deeper somatic muscles, that are responsible for helping us to maintain that, right? And in some of the advanced workshops, like we're having asana immersion, that's why there's like these workshops that are so long, and you go in depth in understanding how things work. Because when you understand that, there's a muscle for my spine that goes down to my legs. There's a muscle from my spine here that goes to the outside of my legs here. There's a muscle from here to here that attaches. And all of that helps keep my body stable, healthy, and highly functional. Just because years pass, your body does not have to become dysfunctional. That's an untruth, right? So it's learning to hold that. So to build from the ground up, my first focus point is this area. You won't hear this in general classes, but this is just basic but important language, and we call them focal points. There's 3 focal points. So if I'm standing, I'm building from my feet, I'm coming up, boom, boom, boom. First focal point. To be able to really pay attention to this focal point, I want to have my pelvis in a neutral position. To have my pelvis in a neutral position over time, I've got to train those deeper somatic muscles. Then I continue moving my awareness up toward my heart, line of energy toward my heart. Then from my arms, there's a line of energy moving from my arms, going toward my heart. Right? So that's the second focal point. With this focal point, I don't want to be going, nor do I want to, I want to be neutral, in a neutral position. It's like you've got a plumb line from the top of your head down your tailbone toward the arches of your feet that you're building up and away from in a very coherent manner. This is challenging. Because the interesting thing is the journey to mastering these processes and building postures empowers your mind because it's challenging. And if you find it challenging to remember, we've got students who have been practicing a long time and it's hard to remember foundation. Sometimes people will still get on their mat. Teacher says inhale and you're going how high? They say jump how high? Instead of going no, the teacher says inhale. So this process of building along lines of energy, then moving along those lines of energy and following our breath is actually training your mind. It's training your brain. It's like neurons are being stimulated. They start firing. Neurotransmitters support the conversation, I guess, for a better word, support the signal between the two. And we're actually training our brain. And that's why it's tough. And that's why yoga is about health. Now, and so when you first start and you come into foundation classes, you come into fundamental classes, when you're building from the ground up, and this is a minimum of 7 to 10 years to even master this part. I mean, really. It's like, people will be like, I've been practicing for 3 years, and I still have trouble with that, getting my foot to step up. You know what I'm talking about, right? This one right here, where you're here. And you step back, you come down into your lunge, or wait, no, yeah, more from down dog. You know what I'm talking about? This one right here. I have people all the time say, I've been coming here for years, and still, when we shift to come up, my foot, it just stops. I should be able to do that by now. Well, no, if you haven't learned how to do it, if you don't know how to do something, you haven't learned how to do it. So you wouldn't really be expected to know how to do something you haven't learned how to do yet, right? So that's just because that line of energy, there's a more or less like a break in that line of energy. So from this point of that stepping up, right, I've got to create a very clear line of energy for my foot to be able to step up. If I don't have a clear line of energy, then it's going to be blocked. So I won't use those terms a lot, but just so you know, every time a teacher's in here teaching, they're always building from the ground up. If you're seated, your foundation is your sit bones. If you're lying on your belly, so for example, if I'm in Cobra, my foundation is the pubis symphysis area, right below my sacrum. That's where I'm building up and out, right? If I am, one of the things that's challenging about down dog, because in down dog, our foundation, does anybody, besides the black belts in here, where do you think the foundation is in down dog? Hands. So it's our hands, and also for many, arm balances and things like that. When you start learning more technical postures, the reason postures become more technical is because this principle of lines of energy, moving up to belly, arms here, and we have a third focal point is our soft palate. Our chin moves toward our soft palate. Everything's building toward the spine and always moving up. So however you're seated right now, you're in a yoga posture. You're leaning in toward this focal point, toward heart, toward soft palate. And everything is always, you're moving in an upward position. Then when I start changing, when I start changing all of my orientations, for example, if I'm going to build a posture from the ground up, like Warrior One, I'm still following lines of energy. My foundation has changed. It's my front foot. I'm building from the ground up. I'm still moving in toward my belly. As my arms come up, I'm still moving my arms up toward my heart. My chin is still moving toward my soft palate. So it's always the same. If I decide I'm going to go into Warrior Two from here, so if you're in a flow class, like you go into Vera Flow, I still want to build from the ground up. It gets a little bit more technical because I start to change, I'm changing my orientation. So postures become more technical because there's more stuff going on. You're starting to use those principles more and you start changing the orientation more. Once you learn these principles, you can do any posture. I mean, you can, if you see some of the more challenging postures, you see people doing different things like arm balances. This is the same principles. Those are all the same principles. The principle that I just did stand up, I'm using exactly the same map, same principles. Make sense? So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to really sell you on the idea of the fundamentals. And for those that have been practicing a little longer, I wanted to reignite you on the importance of the fundamentals. Fundamentals are profoundly important. Profoundly important. If you find yourself coming in, you're like, there are times I realize, the day is rough and it can get stressful, and a lot of people are like, just get me moving. I just want to move. Just get me moving. I mean, we see this all the time. It's crazy. And they're like, I feel so much better when I do that. It's like, well, all right, that's one way to feel better. Right? That's definitely one way to feel better, but is it sustainable? Right? My teacher has always said to me, always practice in a way that you'll see yourself doing for the rest of your life. If you're practicing in a way now that you don't see yourself doing when you're 100, you shouldn't be doing it. You need to practice, always practice in a way, because I know we got younger people in here, but I'm like, I want it to be sustainable. So what's happening there, sometimes, maybe we need to just kind of wear ourselves out a little bit. I've had those times, where it's like, all right, I just want to get on there and just kind of wear myself out a little bit. But you don't want that to be the way you do your yoga practice. You don't want that to become a pattern, because if you've got anxiety, it will feed your anxiety. If you deal with depression, it will feed depression. And you'll feel like you need it more and more and more and more and more, because what's happened is just releasing stress chemicals in the body. With a lot of different places where people go, I mean, they're doing yoga at 110 degrees. It's just because it's stressing them out. They feel so good for a little while, but it's not sustainable. And I'll tell you right now, it's not aligned with Ayurveda at all. There's nothing about it there's nothing about a lot of yoga that's really aligned with Ayurveda in our nation, but thank goodness we're doing it. So I'm glad there's something there. So that's a basic introduction to some very basic principles of movement. Foundation, lines of energy. Now, how can you use this? Depending on your stage. So if you're a pretty beginner student, maybe you've been practicing for a year to 2 years, or maybe it's a month, whatever the case may be, start practicing in a way that you're looking for your foundation. Like, what's the best place to begin from? Like if you come into class, remember the thing we did in the opening when I said, inhale, round your back, take your hips to your heels, back up, down dog. That was called Chakravakrasana. I made the suggestion to you, when you go into a general class, start your practice then. And instead of waiting for the teacher to come in, do about 7 rounds of that, because that'll really help you a lot. Like, it'll help you with your transition. It'll help you so much. Like, bringing your mind and your body into a little bit more of a, I think of it like fish swimming in a school, right? How they, you want your body and your breath and your mind swimming. And when you're like that, if you can get yourself a little closer to that stage before the teacher comes in or before you start, you'll be amazed how much better you'll receive the information. Because you're learning a skill. Every time you come in here, you got great, very well-trained, amazing people leading you in classes. And the more that you can spend, that little bit of time with that, do it. Now, please don't fret or stress or anything if you're behind or a little running late for class. Don't worry about it. Matter of fact, when you walk in, you don't have to start right where they are. You can pause, come into all fours, inhale, round your back, hips to heels. Take a moment and let yourself arrive. Start practicing making your practice about you. Then from there, as the teacher arrives into the class, I want to encourage you, especially if you're newer, to start looking for, where's my foundation? How's this foundation going right now? Am I building up from my foundation? Even as I'm seated, am I building up and away? Am I keeping some clear lines of energy, and stay real clear and just start working with that, all right? It'll change your life. It'll be amazing. Okay, so I'd like to ask regarding postures, any posture-specific questions?
I'm trying to write down each one of the things, with the posture, whatever, in that sequence.
Okay, this Chakravakrasana? Okay, that's a great question, so I'll demonstrate that for you. Okay, so you start in all fours, and just so you know, my hands are my foundation. But from here, and what you'll do is you'll want to inhale. So I'll inhale. We sometimes refer to this as child's pose. I could do this about another 100 times. And very, very simple, but make no mistake, as you practice that and you follow those lines of energy, because what we're really doing there is we're calming the nervous system. And if we don't do something to calm the nervous system, nothing will really change for us. If we really want to kind of change what our current experience is, we have to change, what we're doing. So that's really helpful. Then the other thing on that sun salutation we did, I had us go on our opening through Rasa Yoga sun salutation. So I want to help you guys to see if you feel familiar with that, and kind of talk about the lines of energy through that. So we were at the top of our mat, and we were standing in mountain pose, or Tadasana. So what's my foundation here, Annalise, if I'm standing? Yeah, my feet. And so I'm building from the ground up, focal points, belly. Yay! That's awesome. I know, man. You are like snappy. So foundation, I'm building from the ground up. I'm moving toward focal points, moving toward heart, toward soft palate, leaning into my spine. Okay? So from here, and the teacher will cue you, right? And as the teacher cues you, here's what you don't do. D, well, you just cue me to forward fold, okay? I'm going to do what you do not do, okay? I'm going to be a good student because Dee's a teacher and I'm going to respect her. And so here we go.
Standing in Tadasana, inhale, sweep arms out and up, exhaling, folding forward. Round it up from your low belly, half forward fold, and back to standing.
Okay, so I want you to take me through lunge, Rasa Yoga Sun Salutation, and back up. And I'll do once again. You'll see this is what you don't want to do. Okay? I'll make the turnaround here a little bit. Jess has seen me from before. Sorry, Jess. Okay.
Standing in Tadasana. Inhale, sweep arms out and up. Exhaling, folding forward. Allow your knees to bend. Draw up from low belly. Exhaling, stepping left leg back. Lower back knee, top of the foot. Inhale, draw up from low belly. Palms together, bending at elbows. Inhale, hands to sky. Down either side of front foot. Turning back toes, lift your knee. Step forward. Inhale, draw up from low belly. Arms down by your side.
Okay. That's one way to approach it, right? That's the way most people do. What you will gain from that, not much, not a lot, because yoga is for the long term. It's not short term gain. Remember what Annalise said so perfectly about emotions? Sometimes when you come to yoga, it is not going to feel good. It's not. You're going to come into class and you'll walk out of here and be like, I don't feel good. That class, I am so angry, or I feel so sad, or I got this going on, or I got that going on. And the deal is, it's because you created a space so you could see how you deal with stuff. It doesn't make it good, bad, right, wrong. I mean, it can be helpful, maybe more helpful than other times, but you do need a teacher in yoga. It is a good idea. That's why we have so many workshops and things like that, because there's other stuff happening for you. People are so sophisticated. Okay, so will you cue me all the way through Rasa Yoga and then this sun salutation, and this will also give them a chance if they want to write it down. So this is a real typical sun salutation. Sun salutation, there are several different types, Surya Namaskaras, different types of sun salutations, and it's when you start having poses that are connected together, right? And I also want you to take special note of the transition, okay? Take me through just one side, but all the way through to Bhujangasana, and then back up again, okay?
Standing in Tadasana. Inhale, sweep arms out and up. Exhaling, folding forward. Allow your knees to bend. Inhaling, drawing up, half forward fold. Left leg steps back, high lunge. Notice the stability in your low body, lower back knee, top of the foot to the mat. Inhale, lift from low belly, arms up and overhead, palms together, bending at elbows, fingertips between shoulder blades. Stay with your breathing. Inhale, straighten arms. Exhaling, hands down either side of front foot. Turning back toes, lift your knees, step back plank. Lower to knees, coming onto your belly, Bhujangasana, forward pose. Inhale, turn toes. Exhaling, lifting from low belly, pressing back and up, downward facing dog. Stay with your breath. Inhale to toes, exhaling to the top of your mat. From the forward fold, Uttanasana. Inhale, draw up from low belly, leading with your heart. Your way back to standing Tadasana. Come down by your side. Loud cleansing exhale.
She said exhale. Right, okay, so what did you notice about that one as compared to the one I did just before? More mindful, what do you mean by that?
Sometimes your body just does things and it's almost like you're not even thinking about it.
Right.
You're hearing the commands and you're just doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You're pacing it and you're doing it in a way in which it allows you to process your movements and your breathing at the same time. It's not just
Would you say that my body and my breath are swimming a little bit better together, like fish?
well, you could see how your breathing was purposeful. It had like a rhythm to it. It had a pattern to it. It wasn't just like
Right.
out of stress like you were talking about.
And I didn't just because Dee said breathe, I didn't. And so for most of us, we go through our lives and we're like puppets. It's very stressful because we give our power away every day. We're like, we get up in the morning, it's like, okay, okay, we put all the little strings on and we're like, let's go. Let's see who's going to pull my strings. What's going to happen? It's like I've got a task list of stuff I can do, but I'm already so stressed out because my strings are already getting pulled by other people and I'm already getting yanked around and I don't know what to do. And really, instead of trying to force all that, we come to yoga. The teacher starts cueing us and we give her a few strings. We're like, here you go, because that's how I do things. Okay, and so make sure you wear me out, man. All right. Okay, I'm just gonna get this going here. So I definitely feel better about myself because I know that once I can do this, that then life is gonna be a lot better. Yeah. Oh, good. All right. Oh my God, I'm like way ahead of everybody. I'm like, no, this is like a classroom full of beginners. I should be with people that are more advanced. And that's, in fact, because people don't understand yoga. They, in fact, think that to do it fast and to do a lot and to push. But we can't superimpose our dysfunctional ways on something that can really help us be more healthy. Now, we have to, I want to really honor something here, though, and that if you've been doing it that way for a long time, you may have to do it that way a little bit. And it's up to, I respect that. If that's like, I got to it's like, okay, but work your way into, maybe taking baby steps to where that starts to shift just little bit. Because some of us, we've got so many negative impressions that taking a few moments to close our eyes can feel like hell for some people. I mean, really, if there's been a lot of hurts, a lot of things going on, and it's very, very important. We just, little baby steps. So if you're in my class or you're in one of the classes here and you're like, that is so me, it's okay, right? There is no right way. You've got to be where you are and take little principles at a time. Like what I want to encourage you from here is to start with foundation. Say, okay, I'm going to start focusing on that foundation thing. And that wait for my own breath thing. That's the two things. I'm going to focus on those two things for the next month and just see what happens. And everything else may just be crazy. I may be back there doing backflips. Everybody else is doing something different. That's okay. I'm just going to focus on these two things when I go in. And you can even let the teachers know it, and we know and understand, because that's we're training school. Okay? Now, you also, I don't know if you noticed, but like on this one over here that says, when I get blank, then I will get serious about my training. All right? So what I want you to note here is that as I'm moving, I'm doing what? I'm transitioning, I'm transitioning through different orientations. This is a metaphor for life. In life, we are constantly having changing orientations. The minute we think we got a handle on something, what happens? Right? That's why that number 3, it just doesn't work. But when you get on your mat and you start learning, all right, there was a cue for a changing orientation. I don't have to completely pack up all my bags and move across country just because somebody said that I'm supposed to right now, this second. I don't have to do anything. Right? And so that's basically when you get on your mat and you're learning, you hear teachers say, inhale. You do just that. You don't go, you wait to receive your inhale. When your inhale happens, feel from the ground up, and even as my arms go out, I'm moving toward my heart. I'm moving inward toward my heart, line of energy. Okay, so it starts training you about those, it starts training you through transitions. Okay, other posture, are there any other, now that's Rasa Yoga Sun Salutation. Lots of different other salutations that we do, but that gives you kind of a basic, because that actually covers all points of alignment. For example, even when we go here and we do this, this is to help us learn to create a thoracic extension, increase our shoulder range of motion. So it's all designed to do something to help teach us that. So are there any other like posture specific questions? Danielle asked about Chakravakrasana. I just went through Rasa Yoga Sun Salutation. Okay, downward facing dog. What about, okay, so downward facing dog, and then what about balance? Any questions about balancing? Mm. Well, yes, yes. And, definitely get, your feet, definitely, reawakening muscle memory in your feet and stabilizing your ankles. So it's really like stabilizing your ankles quite a bit and just practicing. So why don't we all, let's stand up and then I'll come back. The last thing we'll do is the building from the ground up. If you wouldn't mind helping yourself to standing and just standing at the top of your mat. Balancing is a tricky thing and it really brings up a lot of inner dialogue for people. It's a very performance, yeah, it's a very performance type of thing. Like people feel like, oh my God, I gotta, And then if you also notice too, when somebody's in front of you, if they wobble a little bit, you can feel like, you start to lose your balance because of that. And I'd always have people tell me all the time, if you just put things on the wall for us to look at. But that's a distinction between internal referencing and external. We want to really strengthen that internal and building from the ground up. So if you're comfortable doing so, you can just keep your hands on your hips and your feet are about hip width apart. So just look down at your beautiful feet and you want to spread your toes. And when you spread your toes, you're going to, like from the toes spread, the big toe mound, that's that big mound just below your big toe. It's almost like that is fastened to the ground. Then as that's fastened to the ground, try to lift through your arches and up through your ankles if you can. Good, very good. Right, so that's really tough. And for some people, if your feet aren't used to that, that can be quite challenging. Okay, now from this place, you want to scoop your tailbone. And one way to know if you're scooping your tailbone is you put your hand at your sacrum. That's a flat bone at the base of your spine. And like move your sacrum back into your hand like it's like a magnet. And you'll notice your abdominal muscles become much more active. And then from there, place your hands on your hips. I've got a sneeze there. I'm not sure what's gonna happen with it. Let your gaze be lifted slightly. So your gaze being lifted means you don't want to use the ground to try and balance. That's not a good move, right? It may temporarily get you something, but over time, it'll train you to go, oh, I find my balance by doing this. Get closer to the ground. That's not a good answer, okay? So you want to keep your gaze lifted. So if you've got somebody directly in front of you, just look a little above their head. You're gazing forward. The first thing you're going to do, you want to keep your toes spread and active. The first thing you want to do is with your attention on your breathing, begin naming your breath because you've got to do something with your inner dialogue. Stability comes from a stable mind. So we stabilize our mind by naming breath and just practice when you inhale, say to yourself, breathing in. When you exhale, breathing out. Keeping your gaze lifted, continue naming your breath. Just shift your weight right and extend your left leg in front. Now notice if you move just because I said so. Do I have your marionette string? I don't want it. I love you, but I don't want the marionette string. So if you need to pause for a minute, come back to your breathing. Go again. Gaze is lifted. Lifting your gaze. Avoid using the ground. Breathe. Good. Bring that back down. Okay. So what did you guys notice? Your mind goes like, "Rrr," yeah, yeah. Or, no, this cannot be happening. Right. Well, and that's why what I want you guys to understand that sometimes the most stable minds may look like the body's unstable. That just because the body seems unstable does not mean the mind is unstable. You notice here we're mixed level classes for a lot of our classes. I mean, we've got some pretty advanced classes in our flow, like our Vera flow. But you'll notice you see a lot of people here that are teachers. You'll see them in foundation classes. And you may see them go, oh, because they want to move to another level of stability. Sometimes if we want to gain a more stable mind, we've got to be willing to let our body be somewhat unstable. I mean, we still follow the same principles, but like if I notice my foot comes up a little bit, I'm not going to go, that instead, they start learning, and it almost can kind of look like a little Tai Chi like. Instead, they come back and they stay very center. So a stable mind can sometimes have a bit of an unstable body, because it's like understanding everything's always, there is that, it's always a little unstable. It's like riding a bike, the riding the bike principle. Well, if you want to get better riding the bike, you take your hands off, then you're a little bit more unstable, and you want to get a little bit better. So when you want to master something, so I'm giving you that because I want you to take care that you're not judging that somehow you're all imbalanced and unstable because you can't balance, right? This is really important to note. And you have different days too, right? Different days, different experiences. Sometimes you're going to walk in and you're going to feel steady, mind, body, boom, like nothing could throw you off. And then some days you're not, right? But instead, use that as an opportunity. When your body feels unstable, use as an opportunity to stabilize your mind. Your body doesn't have to be just, we're not rigid. We're not rigid beings, right? We're fluid. And so, you can be here and notice and keep your mind very, very steady, right? So take care that you guys don't get all like judgmental on yourself and all that stuff. Because think more in terms of stability. Just because the body may feel unstable doesn't mean that the mind is unstable. But the instability of the body can be utilized to support you in further stabilizing your mind. Stable mind, happy life. Okay, so that's a little bit of information. Let's do it on the other side. Let's go to the other side. So, and then we'll go to the hands, because we'll do that before we go. So your feet are hip width apart. And, everybody has a tendency of one foot going this way. Most people do. So you really want to practice getting your feet as parallel as you can. Toes are spread and active. You can have your hands on your hips if you'd like. You can take this to any stage you want, but keep your gaze lifted. Practice naming your breath like a mantra. When you inhale, say to yourself, breathing in. Say to yourself, breathing out. Instead of telling you when to go this time, do this about 3 or 4 times and then shift your weight and lift the leg. And just because other people do it, try to do it just because you're guided by your inner awareness. Very good. So notice when your body becomes unstable, what happens to your mind. Like my body, I got a little unstable when I could feel my ankle. So I have an option. At that time, I could go, oh, what's wrong? What can I get? Or I can go, breathe. Breathing in. Stick with the program. Breathing in, breathing out. Right? Breathing in. If I can't control my physical stability, I can definitely go breathing in, breathing out. Okay, so, all right, so I want to talk about the hand building because I want to make sure that we go through that. So let's go ahead, please come to the top of your mat. We're going to take just a little sequence and then come to down dog. Your gaze is lifted. So always remember when you're in class, you want to practice your visual. You want to practice training your vision so that your gaze can softly rest on one point. And that no matter what happens, you're not pulled, that you can continue to gaze on one point. And then inhaling, sweeping your arms up. Exhale, fold forward. Oh, y'all look gorgeous. Fold forward, inhaling, drawing up halfway. Exhale, left foot steps back. This is a low lunge, back knee low. We're doing Rasa Yoga Sun Salutation. Inhaling, drawing up from your low belly. Lead with your heart. Your arms are sweeping. Palms together. Exhale, lift your heart as you bend. Inhale, hands up. Exhaling, move down the center line. Hands each side of your front foot. Inhale, turn the toes of your back foot. Lift your back knee, stepping back plank. If you know it, you can follow your own breath. You don't have to wait for me if you know it. Follow your breath. Exhaling, knees lower as you make your way to the ground. Bhujangasana. Inhale, press up, fours. Exhaling, hips move back and up, down dog. We'll be stepping the left foot up. Inhaling, shifting your weight forward. Exhale, left foot steps, back knee low. So you can follow your own breath. Right? Once you know the sequence, just follow your own breath, draw it from your low belly. You don't even have to wait for the teacher, but make sure your breath is teaching you. You're following your breath. And then inhale up, exhale down, each side of the front foot. Inhale, turn the toes of your back foot, lift your back knee. Exhaling, lowering your knees to the ground. Make your way to your belly for Cobra, Bhujangasana. Stay with your breath. And then we'll press up and back, down dog. And we're gonna stop here for a bit. Okay, everybody come to down dog. Let me just take a look. Let's see what we've got. You guys look pretty good. Not too far off here. Mercedes, soften your elbows just a touch. There you go. Good. And Annalise, you do really push into your shoulders a lot. So you can take a moment and just look to your low belly with your face. Notice how that back kind of rounds just a skosh. See if you can keep that and drop your head. And then relax your neck. Okay, everybody just come on down. All righty, so down dog. And it's important you learn this because all postures that begin with the hands, this will make a big difference. Like some of you maybe have seen different postures like plank, side plank, different arm balances, even chaturanga, that it's really important for you to know how to diffuse the force from the places where you tend to put force. So what you want to think in terms of, we'll use this for a great example. Like if I put my hands down and I feel, and it kind of hurts right here, that means I'm putting a big part of the force of my body, right? It's going right into my wrist, when in fact what I want to do is I want to be shifting my weight back. Really, down dog is really just a wide forward fold, really. So as I come forward, I still want to keep my weight shifting back. Now, take your hands and just, put your hands together, your knuckles. So your knuckles, the heel of your hand, and then the knuckles of your fingers. Okay, so you have that together. And what you want to do is kind of press into the knuckles, not in a rigid way. But as you do that, notice like with your palms, there's like a little hole, kind of a little, what would you call it, indention. It's like an arch that's created. That's the hands you want when you're in down dog. Okay, just like when you're doing this, that's the hands. This is in contact The knuckles are in contact, and you've got that little arch, because that little arch helps to diffuse force. Now, if this is not active, and if I don't have that happening, then what happens is the force just pushes down into the heel of my hand, and there's no place for it to go, right? So I've got to do that. So I've got to create this capacity so that I can diffuse the force. But then from there, I want to be shifting. I want to be distributing the weight toward my back body. So instead of everything just taking the path of least resistance, I'm going to use gravity, and I want to return, kind of move back and away from that. So I've got this happening, so I'm diffusing force. But from here, I want to, and you can put your hands out in front if you want to try it. You want to have your knuckles, right? Now from here, you want your forearms to draw in toward each other. Your elbow creases are facing each other. There you go. So Megan, kind of rotate your arms in so the elbow creases are facing each other without lifting your hands. This is going to change your world, Megan. This is going to change your world. There's a few of you that this is going to be. So see if you can get it where your elbow creases are facing each other. Just trust me on this. Yeah. So you got the little points, right? And you've got your arch going on, like the Astrodome, right? What's going on over there? Are we forgetting about the teacher? So we're still at the elbows. Okay, so look at your elbows and see where, so you want your elbow creases are facing each other. Everybody got it? Okay, and now as your elbow creases are facing each other, did you lose that awareness on your hands? Okay, now from there, what you want to do is you're going to just right where your collarbones move to your shoulders, feel as though you're dropping your collarbones down, like your clavicle. Feel as though you're dropping your clavicle down, and almost, y'all say how you are, it's like your back body, almost like your shoulder blades are wrapping around your back. So collarbones, shoulders down, and it's like the scapula are wrapping around, or in other words, I'm activating all the shoulder girdle muscles. Can you feel that, Megan? Does it feel strong? What you're going to feel, and you can relax it if you guys want, you're going to feel an opposing force. Yoga is all about really taking advantage of opposing forces. An opposing or force creates energy. It creates power. So as I come into all fours, as I'm preparing, right, as I'm preparing for down dog, and let's say if you're just on all fours, matter of fact, why don't everybody just go ahead and come on to all fours. This is a great example here. So as you come onto all fours, if you just relax there, notice what wants to happen. Just wants to drop into the heel of your hand. But what you're going to do is you're going to, activate those hand muscles. You want the knuckles to be your touch points. And then you're going to feel that little dome in the arch of your hand, in the center of your hand. Then from there, your forearms are slightly isometrically drawing into the center. Your elbow creases are facing the center. Then you want your shoulder blades to move towards your spine and down your back. Now what's going to happen is your upper arms are going to externally rotate, but your elbow creases don't change, because you're going to hold the forearms in an internal. It's a subtle internal rotation. As you move your shoulder blades, it creates an external rotation, and here you have power or force. Let's see if you can hold that, and then turn your toes and lift your knees just about an inch above the ground. This gets tough here. It gets tough to hold it. Then from there, without unbending your knees, press back as far as you can without losing the shoulder girdle stability. The shoulder blades stay right where they are. Okay, everybody come on down. You're doing good. You're doing great. So I'm going to demonstrate as best I can, kind of around the room. Actually, why don't you guys all kind of move in here a little bit closer? Everybody, get on in a little bit closer. And so the one thing you want to know, it's when you start working with something like this, Right now, this is training your mind. Your mind's going, what's going on? We've done this pattern just like this forever, and you're changing the pattern into something more supportive and stable? I don't know. I don't know about this. This is like, So what we're doing as we are, okay, you can come on up, Robert. So we're getting our, just like what we did here, right? We create that little arch in our hands, right? And then from here, the minute I isometrically draw this in, we'll be doing this a lot in asana immersion. You can even see kind of my brachioradialis, and yogis, if they've really got great down dogs, you're going to see a strong brachioradialis right there, right along with triceps. These are always really strong because the yogi is, as we draw those forearms in, it's actually an internal movement. That's an internal movement. And then my shoulder blades, which are all attached, this is my shoulder girdle, right? And I'm just sort of initiating the movement from the underside of my shoulder blades. As I initiate the movement, it really wants to turn my elbows out, right? Because now what's happening is I have an external movement, internal, external. But what you learn to do is you learn to sustain the holding of that internal and external, and you create an incredible force of energy within yourself. You become very powerful and very strong. And without having to be all like, because you're learning to use physics. It's the biomechanics of the body, and you're learning to use physics, and you're learning to use your body well. Believe it or not, when we build from the ground up with our legs, when we're building from the ground up, as I'm here, when I spread my toes, and I do that thing I was doing, it's really the same function, right? Very similar function in that it creates this arch, so that helps diffuse force this way, so I'm not dropping into my heel. So as a yogi, over time, you start having things happen like plantar fasciitis and things like this as you more and more learn how to do this and how to distribute weight. And then from here, and this is stuff you're generally not going to hear in a general class, right? It's just too detailed, but it makes everything, it changes everything. So as I move up this line of energy, I'm drawing my shins in. The minute I do that, all my adductor muscles, there's a saying, where the bones go, the muscles follow, right? So as I draw my shins in, as I scoop my tailbone, automatically thighs externally rotate. Now, I don't want to make them external. I don't have to. All I need to do is build my structure, move toward my focal point, and you couldn't even hardly knock me over. My legs are strong, my low belly is very stable, my low back, because it's all building toward this focal point, which our sacrum is like a little keystone there. I'm getting too asana immersion-y, but that's what we're going to be doing with what we're doing next. And it helps diffuse force. The body's amazing in its function, but we have to consciously participate in it. And so this, doing this, slightly bending our knees, a little similar to the elbows, and that we want to do everything we can when we're aligning our posture to take the force out of our joints. The reason people generally hurt so much is because we live life putting force on the space on our body that should not have force. The joints. The joints are for extension, flexion, circumduction. I think of anything else, adduction, abduction. I mean, they're not for force to go into. Our long bones are beautifully created when working together to be able to diffuse force. Okay, so that's not as technical as it sounds, I promise. Just little things that you can practice in class, right? Know that if you do this and you bring your forearms in and your elbows, little secret, if you feel force in your elbows, that is not a good thing. You don't want to keep feeling force here. A lot of students, one of my students I was sharing about said, you know what, I can't come to yoga, I hurt my shoulder. It's like, well, you haven't learned how to do it yet, and if you just stay out and then you come back, you're just not going to learn. So if we're doing something that hurts your shoulder, you don't do that, but ask questions about the alignment in the shoulder and look and notice and learn about, why did I do that in my shoulder? What's going on? What do I need to do? And then the rest of the time you breathe. You learn how to breathe properly. So Okay, so hands and building away from the heels of the hands. I just want to make sure before we close that you guys have this down. Think. One final thing I'll demonstrate for you guys. Okay, so like knuckles, okay? Forearms in. See, my elbows are pretty soft because the softer my elbows are, the more I'll actually end up using my muscles. So I'm here, my shoulder blades, and it's not, I'm just kind of wrapping. It's sort of a wrapping, and then my upper arms, they externally rotate. So as I go here and I lift, as I go to press back, I'm moving from my belly. Now, even some of you more experienced students are going to notice that you may not be doing this exactly. Right? I'm not pushing back from my shoulders. And at least I showed you this trick earlier. Look at your low belly. That'll keep you from doing that thing you're doing in your shoulders. Now I'm going to hold that, then I'm going to hang my head. So, because you're really putting tons of force into your upper back. I'm just seeing you. I bet you just work. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? That's our society really supports that. Just push, and no foundation there, right? So some of you more experienced students, I noticed you guys going in your down dog. So I'm showing this for the black belts in the room. You did so good, so nice. Then when I said lift, you lifted, and then all of a sudden you pushed back from your shoulders and you went here. Could y'all see the difference there? All right. So that's why you have to do asana immersion 5 million times. So you're here. You go to lift. I'm lifting from my low belly. I'm not doing anything with my shoulders. I'm pulling back my belly. I'm pulling back. I'm using my belly to pull back. I'm not using my shoulders to make that happen. I'm going like that. Yeah, I know. All right, y'all. You have done fantastic. So, did you have a question? Yeah, you guys have done just fantastic. Would you hand me the Kroger things back there? Thank you, Gracie G. So there's a couple announcements before we close. One, you guys really consider doing something more in depth if you're not already, like asana immersion is coming up, Mind Body 101. Really consider something. There's a great course I put together, Ayurveda for Life. It's an awesome deal. Consider doing that. It will help you tremendously. Also, she's got the thing. Also, if you're on Facebook, this is some instructions on going to the Rasa Yoga with Padma page if you want to take that and get on it. Make sure that if you're going on there and if you're watching those recordings or if you're on there live, let me know you're on there and that you love it. Like I do really well when people want me. If I feel like you don't really, you're not really watching it, you don't really want it, I got a lot of stuff I can do with my life, and a lot of people, so let me know, and say something on there, and the more that you say, then the more I'll tend to go on there. Also, if you're not aware, we are a 501c3. There are lots of ways that you can give, and we don't just rely on our tuition. We rely on monthly donations. But I want to pass this around. If you shop at Kroger, you can register your Kroger card. And if you have not shopped at the Kroger on El Camino Real, they have a whole pickup system that is awesome. Has anybody discovered the click list thing? It's fantastic. It's amazing. And so check it out. This has instructions. Also, if you shop on Amazon, if you register with Amazon, and the instructions are on here, now you do have to make sure that every time you go on that you're on Amazon, that you register your Amazon Smiles, and they donate to us every time you shop. There's Kroger, there's iGive, and so please, I want to pass these around, and if you don't know how to do, there's some instructions on here on how to do it. Make sure you've got your stuff registered. Those are super easy ways to give. And we've got other things with special perks if you're interested. Whenever we're done, if you'd like to go, Carrie has some little red sheets. You can ask her for one, and she'll show you different ways. But this is like just a great way, and check with your company. We've got some of our students, we got a $2,500 check from like Mobile or somewhere the other day because one of our students registered their volunteer hours because they're a master's path and they've been here. And Becky's company did the same thing on volunteer hours, right? We've got a few. So check with your company. And we've got a packet that you can give to them. They can see what we stand for and what it is that we're doing. And just check that out. And thank you guys so much. If you want my cell phone number, I can give it to you now because you can text me questions. It's 832-620-832. And y'all love it when someone says, yes, and I got questions coming, baby. 83, we got a lot of nerds here. 832-620-1316. And also the big headshot by the vestibule out there that is there for a reason. It has my cell phone as well. Did you have something you want to say? Yeah, I know. We got plenty of them. We're all like, woo. Plenty of nerds here. Tomorrow night, I'm doing Awaken Your Inner Healer, a little bit more of a talk on Ayurveda, Ayurveda for life. So I'm telling you guys, if I suggest it, it matters and it makes a difference. Thank you all so much for being here. Let's take a deep cleansing breath. I acknowledge the presence of all saints, sages, gurus, teachers, and masters. May our minds be wise and clear. May our intention be pure. May our hearts be merciful and loving. Namaste. Nice job. You guys did awesome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Just pick one thing to practice. Just one thing, and you can bring it into class. Don't try to do everything.